Welcome to this rapid revision session on domino theory. What was domino theory? This was the big reason, or one of the big reasons, why the USA got more involved in Vietnam. President Eisenhower feared the spread of communism from one country to another in Southeast Asia, and so he acted to stop it. The cartoon at the bottom there helps demonstrate that. The idea that the Viet Cong fighters in South Vietnam were trying to turn Vietnam into a communist nation, which would then lead to Laos becoming communist, and then Cambodia and Thailand, Burma, India, Bangladesh, and ultimately the rest of the world. Meanwhile, ARVN, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, and the American military were trying to prevent this happening. So the idea was, stop communism spreading in Vietnam, and you'll stop it spreading around the world too. So, domino theory was expressed by President Eisenhower in the following source, or at least this is his justification for supporting the South Vietnamese government. This is a letter by President Eisenhower to Diem on October 2nd, 1954. It was written after Diem had asked for US financial and military aid. Ultimately, the United States are going to agree to this, but with certain preconditions. The purpose of this offer is to assist the government of Vietnam in developing a strong state capable of resisting attempted subversion or aggression through military means. The government of the United States expect that this aid will be met by performance on the part of the government of Vietnam in undertaking needed reforms. It hopes that such aid, combined with your own continuing efforts, will contribute effectively toward an independent Vietnam with a strong government. In short, the USA will help you defend you from the north, but the South Vietnamese government would have to change their way of governing to suit the USA. You might argue that they're going to become a puppet of the United States in return for this help. More on that in a future session. This screen shows a living graph of increasing US involvement in Vietnam between 1954 and 1964. You don't have to agree with all of my interpretations on here, but I'm trying to give you a sense of the gradual build-up of American involvement and any particular actions and events which show a drastic increase in American involvement. So the bottom of our scale on the y-axis is no involvement at all. We're never really going to get down that low. And then at the top, it's all-out war. And actually, we should never quite get that high, because remember, the United States did not actually ever formally declare war on the North. We have a basic timeline along the bottom, so you get a sense of the chronology. Here are our first four events. You might argue that this represented quite a sharp increase in American involvement. In March 1954, France and the Vietnamese began fighting at Dien Bien Phu. 80% of the French costs were paid by the USA. In May 1954, the USA refused to help the French military, so things stayed down fairly low at that point. But then the USA joined in negotiations but refused to accept the Geneva Accords, meaning that Eisenhower then promised to support the South Vietnamese government. And we've got this commitment to get involved. What about next? In October 1955, US officials assisted with South Vietnamese elections. That represents a small extra involvement. On our sixth event, July 1956, Diem refused to hold elections. Not very democratic. However, the USA decided to back him up on that. Our seventh event, November 1960. The USA urged Diem to be more democratic after an attempt to overthrow him. So they're starting to meddle in the way that Diem governs his country. Then, in January 1961, President Kennedy began sending military advisors to Vietnam. That's quite an escalation. And then, in January 1962, we have the Strategic Hamlets Program. This represents an increase in US government military commitments. 800 US Green Berets, these are Special Forces engineers, helped set up these hamlets. Then, in January 1963, the US gave South Vietnamese soldiers air support at the Battle of Ap Bac. I'm afraid they still lost, and rather embarrassingly so. Then in November 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. However, by this time, there were 16,000 US advisors in Vietnam. We're getting pretty close to war by this point. All it takes is a straw to break that camel's back, and it comes in August 1964. The Gulf of Tonkin incident. The warship USS Maddox claims it came under attack. As a result, President Johnson authorized the use of US forces in Vietnam with the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. And so we can see that is a response to domino theory. The gradual expansion of US involvement in Vietnam happens between 1954 and 1964. Sure, sometimes it's quite gradual, without a huge amount of things happening that are really worthy of note. But sure enough, we can see that line is getting ever upwards until eventually direct and extensive US involvement in Vietnam is a reality by 1964. Some final points then. Domino theory stated the fear that if communism was allowed to triumph in one country, more would follow until communism dominated the world. The USA used this as a justification to be involved in Vietnam. And between the late 1950s and mid-1960s, US involvement gradually increased as the communist threat also increased. By the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, the USA was actively involved in fighting. So that brings this session to an end. Thanks very much for watching. I hope it's been useful, and if it has, please like this video and consider subscribing to the channel, where new videos like this are uploaded most weeks. In the meantime, I'll say thanks very much for watching, and if you're desperate for a different topic for me to cover, then please put it in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye.